Well, it's hard to believe, but it's been about a month since the last time we were together in class, and boy, the time's flown by for some people, and maybe it's not been flying by for others. Hopefully, you've been finding something to do with your time. I know I'm doing a great job of catching up on my Korean dramas and my Japanese anime, and there's still a lot to go. But, in the meantime, hopefully you're doing that calculus homework and getting ready. There's still that final exam coming. Make sure you still keep watching those lectures. It's going to be a fun final. In the meantime, if you're looking for some new skills to learn, I thought I'd share with you one of the skills I picked up a couple of years ago. And it's pretty simple to learn. A lot of people want you to think it's complicated, but no, 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 it's not so bad. And it deals with decks of cards and shuffling. And it's also pretty cheap as far as a hobby goes. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You just need your hands and a deck of cards. And so I'm going to show you with the Tally-Ho deck, and you can get these for about $3 online. If you're feeling like well, I really want to spend a lot more, you can get these for like $5. These are the Aristocrats. Of course, you can buy decks for a ridiculous amount of money online. The more pricey decks are not that worth it. So, all right. So what are you going to do? So we're going to start with this deck. Okay. What's the goal? Well, we're going to do some shuffling. So we'll take our deck out and examine our cards. So let's take a look. Now you'll notice it comes in a fairly nice order. You've got a joker in your decks. Oftentimes the decks come with jokers. Watch out for those jokers. And what do we have? Well, you've got ace to king to king to ace, king to ace, and there's another joker. So we're going to get rid of our jokers. We don't need them in our shuffling. Okay, so now we're going to take our deck here, and our goal is to shuffle. And all right, so how do you shuffle? Well, you do what you always do. You cut the deck in half. You actually know this is exactly half. That was the king of clubs. And I'm not going to do a normal riffle shuffle. So what we're going to do is what's called a faro shuffle. You can look up online, F-A-R-O. And I'm going to cut the deck. I'm going to square the deck. Now, one thing you could do is that you could use your table or whatever you're doing on, but that's going to be noisy. So I'm going to use just the back of the cards to square them up. And after I do that, here on my left hand, I'm going to leave my fingers just as I was when I squared. On my right hand, I squared them, and now I'm just going to do a little change. So I want the fingers in the back. Because what we're going to do is we're going to line the cards up, and we're just going to gently nudge them together. And what's going to happen is that the cards come together in a nice, really beautiful way. Now, why is this a nice and beautiful way? If you look closely, you can see it. They actually exactly alternate. And then we can just sort of slide the cards together. So it is, in fact, intermixing the cards. If you don't believe me, you can go ahead and take a look. So you'll notice now all the black cards on one side, all the red cards on the other. So we are going to shuffle. This is not a sleight of hand thing. And this is also not a force thing. Come on, we need this last card. Okay, this is still the same card. All right. It's all about just lining it up. And so here we go, halfway point again. And so square it up, straighten it up, move the card. So the idea is we're taking this corner here, and we're going to put it into the side of the deck. You line it up, and really that's the hard part, is just lining it up. And then you just gently, this is not forcing together. We do need the fingers in the back, because we are going to just a little bit of pressure. If you don't put anything there, nothing happens. And you bring them together. Now at this point you're probably thinking, okay, so you're just teaching me how to shuffle. All right, what's so interesting? Well, wait for it, it's coming. So how long does this take to learn? Well, when I went to learn, went to my friend, his name is Ron Graham, very good mathematician. By the way, if you get bored with pushing cards together, do a little bit of a flourish, makes it sound really fancy, like we're doing something tricky. And I went to visit him, and he said, all right, Steve, we're going to learn to do these faro shuffles. And I thought, oh, this is awesome. Now, you may not know who Ron Graham is, but he's this very interesting career. He's a former president of the International Jugglers Association. He's has a Guinness Book of World Records for largest number, and he's done all sorts of things, and including magic. And I thought, wow, this is cool. I'm going to learn from a pro. And then he said, I don't know how to do it, but someone showed it to me, so it must be possible, and we're going to figure it out. And so we spent the next 3 days sitting out on his patio. He has, by the way, a really beautiful patio. That's a different story. And trying to figure out how to do it. And by the end of the 3rd day, I was ready to give up because we were trying to do all sorts of things. See, we didn't know what to do, and that's a dangerous thing if you don't know how to do it to try to figure it out. And we were doing like trying to do this, or we were like trying to get the whole sides in. No, that doesn't work. And so by the end of the 3rd day, I figured, well, if I just line up the cards and I can sort of see if I'm getting it exactly in half, and I sort of like, whoa, wait, they're starting to interlace. And then I just nudged a little more, and then they went together. I'm like, what? That's so cool. And that's how I learned to do it. And, well, once you know it's possible, that's a huge advantage. And you just, a little bit more practice, and then you're good to go. Now, I will tell you that you're going to find a lot better tutorials than what I'm doing right now online. But why am I putting this one on? Well, because if you can see me do it, then you'll be convinced. Look, if Steve can do it, anyone can do it. So you're pushing the cards together. And not a lot of force. It's not about force. It's not about pressure. You'll see, I'm barely moving my hands at all. It's just about getting them lined up. See, the cards want to be perfectly aligned. And now, why do we care about this? Well, we have been doing this now for several shuffles. And if you take your deck now, and I'll tell you, if you're counting, you can go back and check. It's 8 times we've shuffled. And lo and behold, we are back to where we started. Okay, now, can you learn this? Absolutely, yes you can. It doesn't take much. Again, you just need a deck of cards. How do you get started? Well, take your deck of cards, and at the beginning you don't need to worry about cutting it exactly in half. That'll come later. Let me give you some things that I learned along the way. So you'll notice that I had my cards facing sort of in that direction. That's because it works for this deck. Decks are not always the same, so be careful, figure it out. See, so you'll see, I'll do it again. This comes together really smoothly, but were I to change the direction, so now they're going the opposite way, and if I were to try to do this, and then it just doesn't work as well. And you just don't know until you work on your deck. Now, I've discovered, and this is me being sort of a crazy person, is when I put my finger on the top of the cards, in one direction it'll be smooth, in the other direction it'll be rough. And that helps me to get to feel the orientation. So one magician I talked to, he talks it about being, there's grain, because it's printed on paper. And by the way, as far as decks go, pretty much any deck you buy that's made by United States Playing Card Company is great. So they make the Bicycle brand, the Tally-Ho, Hoyle, Streamline. In fact, they pretty much have a monopoly on all brands. Don't buy plastic ones. Plastic, this does not work. I've tried thousands of decks, and pretty much any normal deck of playing cards that's made by the company United States Playing Card, you can get it to work. All right, what else do I want to say? Okay, so if you're frustrated, change directions. Also, you want to learn to be careful, because when you shuffle, there's actually 2 kinds of perfect shuffle. See, we're alternating every other card. And this always had the ace on the outside. That's called an out perfect shuffle. Now, there's another kind of perfect shuffle. That's called the imperfect shuffle. And it's just ever so slightly different. It's still every other one, but now the ace goes on the inside. Well, why do you not want to learn the in? Well, if you do outs, we just saw, proof, it only takes 8 out shuffles. If you do ins, 52. And as much as your family loves you, and they've been spending the last several weeks with you, they're not going to sit while you do 52 shuffles. How long does it take to actually do 8 shuffles? Uh, with practice, and I'm talking, several hours of practice spread over days or weeks, you can get it down to a couple minutes, and a little bit more practice, you can get it down to under a minute. So it used to be, there was a paper once that said, well, we know about 100 people who can do it under a minute. And then the same authors later went on, they wrote another paper, follow-up paper, and they said, well, there's about 1,000 people in the world who can do it under a minute. Well, I can do it under a minute, and I suspect now there's probably 10,000, maybe there'll be more in the near future. All right, so how does this all work? Well, again, you want to have your fingers aligned so that as you align them up, you're just think about moving this one corner to the other corner. And it's mostly about alignment, and it's just practice, it's feel. And once you get the feel for it, it's gonna be so simple. It's like when you first learn to ride a unicycle. That's right, I have a unicycle. In fact, I have a unicycle and I have a tricycle. I guess you could say I'm kind of odd. But anyways, back to the story. It's like learning when you're learning to ride. At first it feels impossible, but then it doesn't. So what I'd recommend is just get a deck of cards and just practice. Don't worry about being perfect. Just sort of put them together and just shuffle. And you're just going to cut it roughly in half. You're not going to worry about being exactly in half at the start. You just put them together while you're watching TV, and you shuffle. And then you can practice being fancy. And it's what you want to develop is that feel. Line it up and put them together. And you just keep doing it again and again. And eventually you're going to get to the point where you're going to be really consistent. There'll be times when you're going to get cards where you're not exactly every other ones. But the more you do it, the more you get your feel, then the easier it gets. And, I suspect it's possible that you might be watching something, maybe some TV or streaming, and you just keep practicing. And once you get that down, and you get to the point where you're very consistent with doing every other, then you can start thinking about actually getting it exactly in half and lining it up. Now, I don't know if I really have much else to say. I will, if we were to turn it sideways, you'll see I kind of do like to pivot on my finger here when I'm putting it in, so that this little finger is still in play. I guess it's not really that little, so I'm kind of pivoting around. It's okay, you can develop your own style. Do what you want to do. But again, once you get it, practice, and then you can start working, okay, let me get it exactly lined up so that you can practice. That's kind of the hard part, is you've got to aim. You've got the width of one card to shoot for. You want to make sure you get it just right. And anyways, a little bit of practice, and then you too can start doing a little bit of magic. So, all right. Well, if you have questions, like I said, there's a lot better videos out there that show you how to do this. And this is just the one way I've done it. The magicians, of course, they're going to try to make it very complicated because I have an advantage. People know I'm a mathematician, so they know that I'm trying to actually think about it. Whereas magicians, they got to look like they're not thinking about it. So they have a much harder job. And, well, I guess. See, there's a mistake. You can see when you put them together. You can see how it's a little bit thicker there? Yep, that's all right. You learn. And, all right, good. Well, a new skill to learn. All right, and hope you're doing well. By now, it's really shuffled. And, well, that's okay. That's what happens when you're not paying attention. Things can get out of control. All right, well, we'll check in again later. And take care, my friends. Bye.